No, no question.
All right, great. All right, so with that background, let us come to the agenda for our today's session. We'll be looking at global pharma industry. We'll be also looking at our Indian pharma industry. We'll look at different career options after B Pharm as well as for M Pharm and PhD as well. We'll look at how to write an excellent, brilliant CV. We'll look at how to do a job search. We'll also look at some interview techniques, what are done in pharma companies in India. And finally, we'll look at body language, communication skills, and the email etiquettes which are required for cracking these pharma interviews. All right, so global farm to start with the global farm industry. So I've taken this image from ProClinical. I think it's an agency which this is an agency which deals with I think preclinical and post clinical activities. So this image, what this image shows is the revenue for 2019 of the major pharmaceutical multinational companies in the world. So in 2019, Pfizer's revenue was $53.7 billion. So to summarize this slide, the revenue figures are not important. Just remember that what is the amount of money that the company invests in R&D is what will get them more new products and new molecules. Okay, so if you're looking for an R&D job, just keep in mind that if the company does not have a good R&D investment or a good R&D pipeline, as in there are no good products which are going to be commercialized, then there's no point in getting into that company. But if you see that if Pfizer, Roche, J&J or Sanofi or Novartis or Merck, if they're investing a good amount of money in R&D, then that's a good company to join, because you will that will assure you that you will have good projects coming in, and you will have work to do, and you will get that experience or that exposure from these pharma multinationals. So revenue is just a commercial figure, mainly for the shareholders, mainly for the investors or the board of directors to keep a track of the profit and loss statements. But remember that the R&D and the R&D pipeline plays a major role when deciding which company to opt for if you want to really get into R&D. But if you really want to get into marketing or sales, these are the best companies, because higher the revenue, the better the chances you have of getting a good salary and better packages and better promotions. So if you are looking for sales and marketing, the top 5 companies is what you should aim for, maybe the top 10. And if you want to get into R&D, the point would be check out the R&D investment of these pharma companies. Let's say, for example, Roche and Novartis might have the highest R&D investment. So if you want to get into R&D as a scientist, I would definitely recommend Roche and Novartis, because Pfizer would be on a 3rd position, J&J and Sanofi might be on the 4th and 5th position. So go for Novartis and Roche if you want to get into an R&D position. So with that was a global pharma update. Now let's get to our local Indian pharma industry, how the Indian pharma industry looks like. I believe you all have already learned from your BPharm days that the Drugs and Cosmetic Act came in 1940. There were, I think, in 1945 the Drugs and Cosmetic rules came in. In 48 there was a Pharmacy Act. 1970 was the major Indian Patents Act. So please, if you want to get into patents and rights and you want to do a legal practice after your BPharm, please, I would recommend, please go and read the Indian Patents and Designs Act. That's a very important act, and it will also help you to get a job into legal services, into patents, and into pricing. So this is a very important act. This act was also amended very recently. So this came in 1970. Just remember that. In 1995, there was a DPCO, Drug Price Control Order. So what is DPCO? DPCO is basically a guidance or a law which is followed. It's not a guidance, it's a law which is followed by DCGI or CDSCO. And what they do is they fix the price. It's the fixing of price of every pharma product in India, be it the retail price or be it the MRP. So it depends upon the margins which are set by these guys, by the DPCO. So this was also amended very recently. I believe by around 2016, there was a change as well in the DPCO order. And there are multiple books which are available. You can definitely go and search online for DPCO. If you want to get into sales, marketing, if you want to get into legal practice or pricing, DPCO is the book that you should read. There is a book on DPCO which is available on Amazon. If you just search for DPCO, you will get that. Then in 2005, India became fully TRIPS compliant. So what is TRIPS is, we had process patent till, I believe, till 1970. Between 1970 to 2005, we had the process patent. But 2005 onwards, we complied with the global mandate of having a product patent. So we all the multinational companies started launching their products in India, and from 2005 onwards till date, the product patent is still in place. But there are multiple companies like BDR Pharma, Natco Pharma. They will file different patents. They will file for marketing authorizations for different generic products, but that becomes like a case with the multinational company. So this is a complete different matter, which is as per the PACA. I think there is a para 11 which comes into place when a generic company wants to file or wants to file for a marketing authorization for a product which still holds a patent. So it's a different ballgame altogether. But yes, just remember that after 2005, there have been multiple changes to the pharma rules and regulations as well. Just to give you a brief idea about how our pharma government regulatory system looks like for India, just remember there are five ministries, there are five different ministries, okay, who are handling pharma activities. So just for you to remember right now, the most important one is CDSCO, the Central Drug Standards Control Organization, under which there is DCGI. There is DGHS, which we need not worry about right now. Remember about CDSCO, it comes under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Then there is Ministry of Chemicals and Petrochemicals and as in chemicals, petrochemicals and fertilizers. Under that, it's the NPPA, National Pricing Authority, Product Pricing Authority. So just remember that they are the ones who are fixing the prices of all our products in India. As in be it a generic product, be it a multinational product, the pricing would be decided by NPPA. There is a Department of Pharmaceuticals which reports to the ministry. So remember, all the bureaucrats are reporting to finally a minister, and above that minister would be the health minister who will be guiding all the ministries. Okay, so just remember that when you're opting for any career in regulatory or for an IPR, just remember there are different ministries which we will have to definitely study about before entering into these fields. Next, we come to analysis of Indian pharma sector. So what exactly are the problems or the challenges faced by the manufacturers here in India? You must be knowing that most of the generic companies or multinationals, they have their manufacturing plants in Taloja or in Goa or in Hyderabad or in Himachal Pradesh in Baddi, or there is something in Sikkim. So just remember that all these facilities are inspected by the US FDA. So there are US FDA inspections. And once these USFDA inspections are done, there will be a Form 483 which will be handed out to the manufacturing facility if there are multiple GMP violations. So these are the major challenges faced by the pharma manufacturing units. There are multiple USFDA inspections which happen. There are warning letters which go out to these manufacturing units, and that creates a problem to their share price on the BSE or NSE stock exchanges. So just remember that that's one of the major challenges faced by the Indian drug manufacturers in India. There are a lot of pricing pressures from the government on all the generic molecules which are available in India. So this is another challenge faced by our manufacturers who are producing drugs mainly for India or for other markets. But the pricing would be only applicable for the products which are sold in India. So the pricing is not applicable for a product which is sold in US or for a product which is sold in Latin America. So this is mainly for the products which are sold only in India. So there's a pressure by the government. There are many fake products. So you must have learned about spurious product during your BPharm days. So yes, there are a lot of fake products which are there in the market, and they're eating up the market share of the generic products. There are a lot of fake products. This is another challenge faced by the drug manufacturers. There is a lack of trained human resource in the pharma industry. This is a major challenge. I believe all you guys who are listening to me right now, you guys will definitely make a change to the industry. If you actually go through all the procedures, all the rules and the regulations, you can make a change to the pharma industry, because there is a lack of trained human resource in the pharma industry. And the final and the fifth major one is health insurance. We do not have health insurance in India. Very few people, the private insurers, or they will, the private insurance is mainly for the ones who are employed in white collar jobs. But for the jobs which are blue collar, there are very few instances where they are provided insurance by their companies, or they themselves individually cannot buy an health insurance. So this is the biggest challenge, because we pay from our own pockets. Okay, so this is a major challenge for our pharma sector in India. So there is a huge spend by the government and by the pharma companies on the products which they manufacture. So remember, there is another issue, which is the health insurance, which is not available in India. Next update is, there are many recent articles which published that we are dependent on China, but that is really a real case. India as a pharma market, we import most of our APIs from China. and we are the ones who are who make the formulation. So we are the ones who are the formulators for the world. Once we make these formulations, we send it either to US, or we send it to Latin America, or we send it to Middle East and to the African markets. So these are the semi and unregulated markets where the regulations of the law are not that stringent. So we also sell it to these countries, but the most regulated ones would be the US, the UK, the European market, and the Japanese market. They are the most regulated pharma markets. Then above that is the CRAMS, is the contract research and manufacturing services. These are the services which are provided by agencies, by contracts or contractors, or by vendors who provide these manufacturing and research services for smaller manufacturers or bigger manufacturers who cannot have their own manufacturing unit. So CRAMS is also a booming sector in India. And finally, NCE stands for New Chemical Entity. Every pharma company, be it a generic company or be it a multinational, they will try and have an NCE, because once you have an NCE, New Chemical Entity, you will get patent for that particular entity depending upon how new that product or how new that molecule is. If the product patent will last for at least around 20 years, but that's from filing the patent. So you'll have to go into R&D, then you'll have to go into clinical trials. That will take around 12 years. Once your product is in the market, you'll have at least around 8 years to market that product. So that's the new chemical entity part. So the recent news from Indian pharma industry, is there have been ban on FDCs. You must have heard that there are cases of CDSCO circulating a list of 200 or 300 FDCs. These are the fixed dose combinations which were banned because there was no clinical trial or no data which was available, which stated that these are safe, or these are efficacious, or these are not harming the public population. So there were many cases which were reported in the recent past where DCGI and the NPPA, they banned these FDCs. So this is a very recent news. There have been a lot of bans which are happening. UCPMP stands for Universal Code of Pharmaceutical Marketing Practices. This was a voluntary code which was rolled out in November, I think around October, November 2014. And this was mainly for guiding all the sales and marketing people that they should not be bribing doctors in terms of giving them cash, sending them on international trips, or giving them any monetary or any kind of personal benefits which they ask for. So UCPMP is still not a law, and the Modi government is trying to make it a law very soon. So once I think that comes in place, there will be very strict rules in India for sales and marketing, which are not there in place right now. There was GST. GST was not there earlier. Remember, every state had their own tax rates, and every state had different tax rules and different tax regime. So when GST came in, there was a standard tax, and every pharma company had to abide by it, and they had to change their packs. They had to change their packs with the GST tax, so that the MRP also changed. So just to keep this in your mind, that with these changes, there have been a lot of things happening in the Indian pharma industry. E-pharmacies have come up very, very, very highly in the last 4 to 5 years, like 1mg, NetMeds, PharmEasy. So if you're looking for jobs, these are also very good companies if you want to start in a startup. So these are also very good companies which are booming, unless CDSC or DCGI says that you cannot sell it online and you have to sell it through brick and mortar stores. So 1mg, NetMeds, PharmEasy, if you really want to approach them, please do approach if you're really interested in joining a startup. The experience and the exposure would be amazing and tremendous, because these websites are hosting webinars. These websites are hosting the product, the marketing kind of campaigns. So joining these companies will also be beneficial in the future if you really want to get into digital. And finally, everything is going digital. See, today's our seminar is also a digital seminar. We couldn't have done it in a room of 80 to 100 people, because we have a attendance of at least around 200 people. So digital is enabling everything. So even the medical representatives are not allowed to visit the doctors right now because of the COVID-19 situation. So they are allowed only to send emails to the doctors. They cannot even send an SMS or a WhatsApp to the doctors because that's not allowed. So you can send only an email to the doctor. But imagine a doctor who's handling multiple, like hundreds of pharma companies. There'll be hundreds of emails sitting in his inbox. So that's really not, a feasible option. So you'll have to develop a rapport going forward. You'll have to ensure that what are the needs of these doctors, and you'll have to cater them as per their expectations. Okay. So this digital is also booming. So remember, if you want to get into sales, marketing, the next new wave is the digital wave, and you will have to adapt, or you will have to change, with the digital innovations which are coming in. All right. So just to summarize the Indian pharma market, sorry about the slide. It's actually taken from one of the a very good Professor Sikri sir. He's from Narsi Monji. He's the managing director of RPG Life Sciences. So this is the slide that he had showed us. So this is a slide which says that the Indian pharma market, remember, it's highly fragmented. There are more than 10,000 players, the generic players who are there. The top players, they at least have 43% market share right now. Our Indian pharma market is fiercely competitive. For one molecule that you launch, there will be 200 other competitors with you. So remember that it's very fast growing. Our market is Indian pharma market is fast growing, consistent double-digit growth. It was like 10%, 12%. It has come down right now because of the COVID-19 situation. It might be in negative growth as well. But yes, it has been growing. It's a very low price market. Remember, we are third in volume. We manufacture a lot, but we are 13th in value because we manufacture in rupees and we have to sell it to the countries who are buying, in dollars. So that's a very low price market. We are self-pay. We do not have insurance in India. So everybody has to pay from their own pocket. We are a branded generics dominated country. We are branded generics. They at least have around 72% market share. There are OTC over the counter products, and there are patented products which are there from the pharma MNCs. Remember that our Indian pharma market is acute therapy dominated. Acute therapy is like, for example, is pain. Chronic therapy is like diabetes or cancer or anything which goes lifelong. It's a lifelong therapy. So chronic is completely, so cancer is not a chronic. Diabetes would be a chronic therapy area. So our Indian industry is acute dominated. So 71% of the market has molecules or products or brands for the acute therapy, and the rest 29% is for our chronic therapy. Remember, our local Indian companies are dominating the Indian pharma market. We have at least around 79% share of the local Indian generic companies, and 21% share is of our multinational companies. Remember, there's a very high potential for Indian pharma market to grow right now, because although our percentage per capita is very low, our global market, we are just 18%, but we have a population of at least around 18% of the global population, but our market is just 1% of the global pharma market. And we are the pharmacy to the world. We provide at least 20% of generic drugs to the world pharma generics demand. So remember that we are the pharmacy to the world. This is one of the documents from IQVIA. So if you want to get into sales and marketing, remember that you will be the one who will be involved on a day-to-day basis with deciding how exactly a market share looks like. And let me see if I can quickly flash that. So this is how a market report looks like. So if you want to get into sales and marketing, this is how the report would look like. This is what you will be looking at, how the market is growing, how the therapy is growing, which are the brands, which are the companies. So let's say, for example, I hope you are able to see my screen. I'll just increase the font size. Okay, so the top companies in India right now are Sun Pharma with this is the latest report. This is May 2020 report, which has at least the revenue of around 868 crores. Next was Abbott Cipla. Remember, Abbott is a generic company for India because they are more into generic products. Cipla is on number 3, Mankind is on number 4, Lupin is on number 5. These are the top 10 companies. Let's go quickly to the next slide. These are the next top 11 to 20 companies. We have GSK, Aristo, Pfizer, Sanofi. Let's look at the therapies. All right, so let's move to the next slide. So so the top 40 brands. Remember, there are top 40 brands, and we'll have once you are into sales and marketing, you will have to look at these numbers. So that there are different brands and there are different categories. So top 40 brands right now, the number 1 is Mixtard by Abbott, Glycomet, Lantus, Dexorange. So to summarize, from the top 10 brands, you could see that the top 10 brands at least has around 5 to 10 brands which are into diabetes. So remember, anti-diabetes, diabetes and cardio are the biggest therapies in pharma industry in India. So just to look at how the categories look like. See, here it's the cardiac, the number 1. So we have the highest number of hypertensive patients in India. Next to that is diabetes. We have highest number of diabetes patients in India. That's why these two therapies are growing very rapidly in India. The other therapies are growing, but growing very steadily. So remember that if you want to get into pharma companies in sales and marketing in India, they should have a portfolio of molecules or products or brands who are catering to cardiac therapy or to an anti-diabetic therapy. Anti-diabetic therapy would be like Novo Nordisk or Biocon, or with other companies like I believe Cipla or somebody like USV. So they are into diabetes. So then for cardiac, you'll be having Sun Pharma. So these are the companies. If you want to get into these therapies, remember that go for the companies who have these two therapies, because they are the ones which are growing very rapidly in India. So coming back to our slide. So with that, let's look at, now that we know how the global pharma market looks like, now that we know that how the Indian pharma looks like, let's explore what are the career options after B Farm. Just to give everything on a single slide, there are multiple options. You can go for further studies like MPharm, PhD, MS, MBA. There are multiple certificate courses available for patents, for clinical research. There is a diploma course in clinical research in ACE BCP. There is also a course in Tata Hospital. You can get into academics as well. You can continue with teaching. You can continue as a fellowship. You can also do a postdoc, and you can continue with your research. You can get into government jobs. You can also become a private consultant. There are multiple private jobs, and we'll be discussing all these in details in the next slide. So don't worry, just have a look at the slide right now. You can also have your own business. So you can start your own R&D unit, or you can also have your own manufacturing unit. You can have your own formulation or manufacturing unit. You can become a distributor, wholesaler, or a stockist if you have that space available with you. You can have your own store as pharmacy store as well. So if remember that once you graduate as a B Farm, you will have the license to be a pharmacist. You can have your own store. So that's again another option if you want to start. You can also get into legal practice, that's patents and pricing. There are multiple companies who are helping pharma companies for filing patents. There are multiple companies who are helping the pharma companies for pricing their products. So there is another option there as well. And then finally, and the most upcoming and booming sector right now, it's the digital healthcare. So digital marketing is the most upcoming one. So if you really want to get into marketing, I would definitely recommend you to do a course on digital marketing, because that would help you to get a quick job in any of the pharma companies, because they all are looking for digital experts. Creating a mobile app for doctors where they can access all the information for the patients, or creating a mobile app for the patients where body temperature or BP or anything, or the blood glucose levels can be measured. That can be done as well. So that's mobile app. You can have multiple websites for your pharma brands. You can become a social media expert. For example, you can post about your brands on social media like Facebook, on LinkedIn, or Pinterest, or anything else where or even on the e-pharmacies. E-pharmacies also cater to marketing teams. So you can also post about your brands on these e-pharmacy websites like 1mg, NetMeds, and PharmEasy. There are doctor websites called as DocPlexis, so that's also there. You can also get into advertising. That's again another option if you're really keen and very creative. And then the most important one is market research and analytics. So remember the report which I just showed you, it's a market research and analytics report created by IQVIA. It's a research company. It's a combination of IMS Health and Quintiles. There's another company called CMARC based out of Kolkata. There's also another company called SMSRC in Andheri. They are into market research and analytics. And I've seen that many of the BPharm graduates or an MBA, BPharm and MBA from BCP, they have joined market research companies like SMSRC or IQVIA. I know there are a couple of ones I've met. I think Karan Shroff is the one who's working with IQVIA. He's into IMS. So he joined IMS and he's into market research. Then there is another lady who's joined SMSRC in Andheri. She's I think a BPharm and MBA from BCP, as in BCP, BPharm from BCP and MBA, I believe from some other college. But yes, so there are many students who are joining market research. So this is a very good field if you want to have a desk job. But if you want to have a traveling job, there will be sales and there will be marketing as well. So let's look at all these categories in detail. Further studies. So now that, let's say you have completed your B Farm, what are the options that you have? You have multiple options. You can do an M Farm. You can give your GPAT, and I'll have different specialties where you can have your masters. You can give your masters for NIPER, for BITS Pilani. You can also go to US with GRE and TOEFL. You can also give your CATs and CETs. See, there is a pharma management course the full-time pharma management course in Nursing Monji and in SIS. So if you really are keen on getting into and doing an MBA, I would definitely suggest go for either of these two institutes, because they have the best pharma management courses right now. Because the other Other institutes in Mumbai, they offer MBA, but that won't be hardcore pharma MBA. It would be either healthcare management, or either it would be an hospital management, or it would be a general management where operations, HR, marketing, and other things would be, and finance would be taught. But NMIMS and SIS, they only cater to pharma management. So if you really want to get into that, please apply to these two institutes. There is MBA for GMAT and TOEFL, which you can again appear and go to US for MBA and for your for an MBA, by giving a GMAT exam. And there are multiple diploma courses. There is an MSc in clinical research by ICRI, that's the Indian Clinical Research Institute of India. There's the ACE for BCP from BCP. There's Tata Hospital also as an MSc clinical research program. So there are multiple options for further studies. I mean, you can decide if you want to really go for further studies or if you want to start working immediately. But just remember that once you start working and once you start getting the money, it's very difficult to come back and go back to studying. It's really very difficult. You won't have to time, and doing an executive course, that will be very, very extremely challenging. So if you really want to continue with your education, I would suggest that after your B Pharm, continue with your M.Pharm or a PhD and get all those degrees and then get into the corporate world. Or if you really want to start immediately, start earning immediately, I would recommend immediately start earning after a B Pharm or a B Pharm MBA. But MBA would definitely help you, because you will understand the financial side of how exactly a pharma company works. So with the first one, the further studies, now that you have decided what to do, let's say if you want to study or if you want to get into a job, let's say if you want to get into a job after doing your M.Pharm or a PhD, the state hierarchy or the options or the hierarchy in a pharma college would be like you will start with as a lecturer, you will grow as an assistant or an associate professor, you become a professor, then you become an HOD, a principal, and the final option would be to become a university chancellor. And this university chancellor would be definitely reporting to I believe, the governor of that particular state. So remember that, if you want to get into academics, this will be the path that you will ideally follow. But this is only if you really love teaching, teaching students. If you really love, you want to focus on a single subject and you want to specialize in that subject and you want to teach students about that particular subject. Only if you really want to do that, please get into academics. But if you're not keen on specializing into a single subject and you are not, not very, not able to express yourself or communicate very clearly with the students, please don't get into academics. But if you really love interacting with students and helping them, solve their problems, please do get into academics. So this would be a very good field, very lucrative, very secure, and in the current times, I believe there are no issues with with the kind of jobs that they have. Next would be the different kind of the jobs, the private one, the government ones, and the private ones. For government ones, I believe there is a UPSC exam which has to be cleared by for joining as a drug inspector. So there are multiple drug inspector levels. There are joint drug inspectors, JDCIs. Then the final one would be the DCJ, the Drug Control General of India. But I believe to get into any kind of a government job, I believe you will have to give the UPSC exams or any the exams which are required, for getting into government jobs. There are many pharmaceutical consultants, but for becoming a consultant, you will have to spend at least around 15 to 20 years in the industry. When you have spent good amount of years in the industry, you can become a pharmaceutical consultant. As in, you will be consulting pharma companies for making strategies for them, for strategy for launching a new molecule, strategies for making your new product launch, strategies for how to sell, strategies for creating a digital strategy for pharma companies. So these are the private consultants who are there right now. And I know a couple of them, and they're doing really good. So, but for that, you'll need to have at least around 15 to 20 years of experience. Insurance sector, there are multiple insurance companies who will approach the pharma colleges, and there are good jobs in these sectors as well. But I won't recommend going into an insurance sector because this is a completely different sector that from what we have studied. So I would request everyone to stick to at least a private job or get into academics, because that would be the best thing to look forward in the future. And there are private jobs. So with private jobs, let's go into details of each private job. Private jobs, there are R&D jobs. So there are R&D. Just remember that R&D in India is not that highly recommended as it's highly recommended in the countries like US, UK, or Canada, or Australia. So there are the people who work in R&D are paid really well in all these four countries. But here in India, it's not that very developed because India is a very generic market. So innovation and spending on R&D, it is not looked up to. So it's R&D is on a very done on a very nascent stage in India. So we are mainly into importing APIs and creating the formulation. We have lots of formulation and development departments in India in many generic companies. So there'll be multiple jobs in F&D. So you must have heard about F&D jobs. There'll be a lot of jobs in Hyderabad, Bangalore, and in other states where they have F&D as in F&D units, where they are creating formulations for pharma companies. So there are multiple jobs in that sector. Production and manufacturing, these will be shift jobs, shift-based jobs. There will be multiple shifts like morning shifts, evening shifts, evening and night shifts. So remember, if you want to get into production, it's a different ball game altogether. There'll be quality assurance and quality control jobs as well. The quality assurance professionals, they'll have to visit these manufacturing units. The quality assurance person will actually look at whether this person is wearing everything as per the SOP, all the machines are working as per the SOP, all the labels which are printed are as per the SOP. So that's a job of a quality assurance personnel. So this personnel will have to go to the manufacturing site and look at all whether all the things are happening correctly. And then pharmaceutical packaging technology, as in the final packages which are created. So there are jobs in this particular division as well. So there are then moving on to the office-based jobs of pharma companies. There's clinical research, there's regulatory affairs, pharmacovigilance, drug safety, medical affairs, medical information, sales marketing, and market research. So there are multiple courses which you can do for clinical research, regulatory affairs, and pharmacovigilance if you want to get into these three fields in India. But remember, all these three fields are the backend and the support fields, okay? And even medical affairs is a support department for a pharma company. The main ones are sales and marketing. They are the pillars of a pharma company. They are the major pillars of a pharma company. Then there is market research. As we mentioned earlier, IMS and SMSRC, CMARC, they are doing excellent market research. There are other companies like Nielsen. There are companies like Kantar. Then there's Millward Brown. These are the companies who do market research for pharma companies. There's Ipsos, there's McCann. Then there are other multiple companies who do market research. They provide prescription data to the pharma companies. Based on that, marketing will design a marketing brand, a brand plan, and they'll circulate the material to sales. Sales are the ones these are the MRs who will be actually meeting the doctors. So that's sales. If you've done a PhD, I would highly recommend that you get into medical affairs, because these are the roles where you will be highly regarded, because you already have a PhD, you know everything about, let's say you've done a PhD in pharmaceutics or pharmacology, you will be highly regarded in, designing medical plans, for a pharma company. And there is also medical information. Medical information is the information which the doctors, when they call up a pharma company for any kind of query on the brand, or if they want to know something about a therapy, there is a medical information department. I believe in most of the major multinational pharma companies, they do have people who are working in medical information. So if you want to get into pharma companies, medical information is also another division where you can get into. Remember, medical information does not require a MPharm or a PhD. Medical affairs does require a PhD. Medical information you can also get into with a BPharm degree. And all these, the above three ones, the clinical research, regulatory, pharmacovigilance, BPharm is absolutely fine. But if you have you will definitely have an added advantage if you have an MPharm or a PhD, so that it's easier for you to climb the ladder for all these three divisions or three departments of a pharma company. All right, so with the jobs that we looked at, the government jobs, the private jobs that we looked at, but for applying for these jobs, you will require to write an excellent CV, and you will have to do a brilliant job search. Unless you do that, you won't land up with a good job. So what you need in a CV for writing a good CV. So I've jotted down some few points which I've seen I've seen that the pharma company or the HR people will definitely look at. So the 5 or 6 major points which should be there in your CV are: you need to have a 2-pager document. Need not make so 2-pager is mainly like a resume. CVs are more like 10 to 15 pages. So difference is resume would be more of 2-page document. Your name should be there on the top of your resume. Remember to mention your name on the top. Do not write CV or curriculum vitae or resume on the top. Not required at all. Please mention only your name. So let's say the name would be Ninad Satam on the top. There'll be address here. My email ID, my phone number would be here on this particular A4 size page. I will always mention my skills and capabilities. What am I good at? I'm good at project management. I'm good at communication skills. I'm good at presentations. I'm good with these therapies. So I'll mention the skills, on the top. These are the skills which you want, to present to your interviewer or to your HR person. These are the skills which will be picked up by their electronic systems when you upload your document on any of the Naukris or Naukri.coms or LinkedIn. So these are the skills which they pick up, and that is when they call you up. So remember to mention your skills on your front page. Objective is not required. So don't put objectives here. It does not help at all. So everybody knows that you're applying for a job that so that you can grow in the organization, so that you can help the organization to grow. So need not put that as an objective. So, that is not required. Education is a must. So you'll have to mention in a chronological order the latest being on the top and the others on the bottom. So you can mention PhD, MPharm, BPharm, SSC, HSC, and SSC. That would be the sequence for education. Mention your short experience wherever you have done your internship, at least for 3 or 4 bullet points, and then mention achievements and awards. So recently, I believe, I don't know whether Dimple Rohera, I believe she is from the third year class. She contacted me and she has a brilliant CV. So I believe if you start working and work on your CVs, you can definitely have good CVs and you can apply for those sales and marketing kind of jobs. So work on your CV, make it a 2-page document, and ensure that you are capturing all these 6 bullet points. These are the ones which are sufficient. You need not put all your hobbies and listening to music or playing something else. It need not be there, but highlight these 6 points in your CV, and I can assure you that you will be called, at least you will land up for an interview. After that interview, it's all about your skills, how you crack that interview, and we'll discuss that in the later slides. So once you're ready with your CV, so now the next step after writing a good CV is doing a job search. So how do you start with your job search? The first thing I would suggest is please contact your friends, as in the ones who are already working in the pharma industry. Please contact your relatives who are already working in the industry. They are the ones who will help you, because they are the ones who will be your reference. They are the ones who will guide you on how to go about doing your job search. Get in touch with BCP alumni. There are a lot of BCP alumni who are already working in pharma companies. They are there on LinkedIn. They are there on WhatsApp. Contact them, get in touch with them, network with them, and ask them, understand what's the job requirement, then apply. Send your CV to them, speak to them, talk to them, call them up. So getting in touch with BCP, nobody will will say no to you. So please approach them. Okay, that's the best thing to do. Next would be the LinkedIn job search and Naukri.com. So that will be the 2 options which I suggest. There are lots of other options as well: Shine, Indeed, Times Job. Then there are multiple other websites, but I would prefer that you go on LinkedIn. So all the BPharms, as in the first year, second year students, and the third year students who are there on the call, and also even the final years and MPharms and PhDs, I would request everyone to please create a LinkedIn page. As in, a LinkedIn page is the one which the recruiters look at, and most of the pharma companies have started asking for a LinkedIn page. So if you have not created a LinkedIn page as yet, please do create one. If you want to know how to create one, you can definitely go to my profile, check out my profile, how exactly I have made it, and you can use multiple points from there and create your own. But please, I recommend that please create a LinkedIn profile. Job portals, please keep your all your information on the job portals updated. If you have changed your job, if you have changed your phone number, if you have changed your email ID, ensure that you have updated all your information on these job portals like Naukri.com and the other ones which I mentioned earlier. There are career consultants. Remember, there is ABC Consultants. There is Antal Group, ANTAL, Antal Group, which is there, Antal International. Then there are multiple other groups, like I believe there is Kelly. There is Kelly Search Services. Then there are multiple career consultants who will help you, to land up a job. Get in touch with them. They're all there on LinkedIn. They're also there on Naukri.com. Then there are pharma recruiters. The recruiters are the ones who will get paid for getting you hired in that pharma company. So get in touch with them, because they are the ones who will be knowing about the internal openings. So the first and the most important first one is getting in touch with the ones who are already working in the industry. Get in touch with them. A big warning is a strict no-no is do not like or mention your phone number, or do not comment saying hi, or do not comment saying I am interested, or do not comment saying on these pharma posts on LinkedIn. It is not going to help you. If you're really looking for a job, I would recommend get in touch with person who's already working in that industry. They are the ones who will help you, who will guide you, who will refer you. Just commenting hi and I like and I subscribe, I am interested, and sending your mobile numbers on LinkedIn to some random posts will not get you a job. I trust me on that. That will not help at all, because I have tried doing that. That will not help at all, and then it's a waste of time. Plus, you will be end up sending your phone number and personal information in the wrong hands. Do not, post your mobile numbers, especially for all the girls. Do not post your mobile numbers on any of open platforms. Like, do not comment with your mobile numbers on any of these platforms. That will land you up in trouble. So mention it on Naukri. That's absolutely fine. Do not post it on LinkedIn openly. But if you know that somebody is approaching for getting you an interview to placed in an interview, you can speak to them. You can share the mobile number with them. Otherwise, do not post your mobile number anywhere. It's a strict no, because mobile numbers would be sold will be sold to multiple other companies, and they'll start spamming you with multiple other things, like there'll be other advertisements which will start coming on your email ID, so or on your phone, on your SMS or your WhatsApp. So please don't do that. Next, once you have your CV and you have done your job search, you now want to know which are the pharma companies where you can apply in India. So the pharma companies are, see, I've just jotted down some of them which are there, which are the very highly recommended ones. These are the generic companies which are there in India. Sun Pharma is in Jogeshwari, Cipla is in Lower Parel, Glenmark is in Andheri, Lupin is in Bandra, is in Bandra East, yes. Alchem is in the Lower Parel, USV is in Govandi. So the top three are the ones which I think you all should target if you really want to target: Sun Pharma, Cipla, Glenmark. Yes, Dr. Sagar. Hello, Galvina, Dr. Sagar.
Yes, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes. No, I just received a message saying you wanted the control.
No, you continue. That was between us, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you continue.
Sure. So there are multiple generic companies in India. There's USP, there's Vocard. I'll have to cancel the control, Dr. Saga, because I'm not able to move the slide. All right. So the other generic companies which are there, which are not in Mumbai but there in India, there's Torrent, there's Dr. Reddy's, Biocon, there's Hetero, there's Piramal, there's Mylan, and there's Reliance also there. Reliance Life Sciences is another generic company which is into mainly into antibodies. They're mainly into vaccines. So they've started as a unit in Mahape in Mumbai. Then we have multinationals who are also there in Mumbai, very much in Mumbai. There is J&J in Jogeshwari. Novartis is very much in Bandra. Pfizer is also in Bandra. There's Roche also in the same building. GSK is in Worli. BMS is in Indiabulls, in very much in Prabhadevi. We have Amgen in Andheri. We have Gilead in Gurgaon. There are other companies. Don't worry at all. Do not write down all these names, because I'll be sharing the presentation with you post. Once we have ended this session, I'll definitely share this presentation. No need not write it. Don't worry. Just pay attention right now. We have AstraZeneca in Bangalore. We have Roche. We have Novo Nordisk. There's Boehringer Ingelheim. This is a German company. Novo Nordisk is a European company. Abbott is there in BKC as well. There is MSD. MSD is Merck Sharp Dome. This was the name of the company was changed. The Merck was a German company who went to US. Then it became Merck Sharp Dome. And there's Merck. Merck is in Godrej. I was a part of Merck. Merck became Procter & Gamble Health Limited. As in the Merck Consumer became Procter & Gamble Health Limited. Then there are multiple CROs. You might get offers from Quintiles. Now, Quintiles and IMS has combined in November 2017, and then the name of the new company is IQVIA. There's Covance. Covance is another multinational pharma company. It's actually not Covance anymore. So Covance, Cyphomix, and Chilton, they are now a part of a company called as LabCorp. So LabCorp is the major parent company. CRO is one of the smaller Indian CRO, which is based out of Waghli Estate in Thane. They also have an office in Hyderabad. There is Paraxel. These are the CROs which they mainly cater to clinical trials. Then there is PPD, Syneos, PRA. These are all multinational CROs. Navitas is in Bangalore. There's Medpace in Navi Mumbai. TCC and Cognizant, you all very well know. TCC is in Vikhroli and Cognizant is in, I believe, in Powai. So they all will be hiring for jobs like pharmacovigilance, medical writers. So remember, before applying for these jobs, just go through the JD. Only if you find that it's interesting, please do apply to it. Otherwise, please don't apply, because there will be multiple shifts jobs as well. So getting into shift jobs, you need to understand you will have evening shifts, you will have night shifts. So just before taking up any kind of a job with TCS or Cognizant, just go through the JD, understand whether it's a general shift or a shift kind of job. So do not apply without looking at the JD. Okay. All right. So now that we have looked at different companies, let's look at different interview techniques that you will have to go through. So the first and the most important thing before an interview begins, you'll have to do a thorough homework on the company. So let's say if you get a call, let's say from Novartis in BKC, and then let's say if you get a call from Novartis in Hyderabad, so you'll have to learn everything about the Novartis as a company. So they have multiple companies inside Novartis. So there is Sandoz in Novartis. There are other companies which are a part of Novartis. So Novartis will have patented products would be separate, generic products would be separate. There are other products. So you'll have to understand what the company does. And then also when you get a call from the HR, just try and ask them who are the interviewers who will be interviewing you. There are high chances that these people, you might be knowing these people, or you might be having some mutual connections or mutual contacts with these interviewers. So try and understand who are the interviewers, as in who will be interviewing you. So once you know that, if you have a common point or if you have a common topic, it will be a very good thing to take it up during that interview. It immediately creates a rapport. So pre-interview, the main point is do your homework on the company and do your homework on about the interviewer. So that's really very important. If it's a telephonic interview, it will be a voice-only interview. For example, somebody will just call you up on your phone and they'll do a telephonic interview to understand what's your background, whether you've done BPharm, MPharm, or a PhD, what do you plan to get into, where you want to be after 5 years, and what's your plan or what's your salary expectation. So that will be a telephonic interview. But always remember, it's easy to lie on a telephonic interview because you know that nobody's seeing you. You will be very tempted to lie about it. So do not lie on a telephonic interview, because even if you lie on a telephonic interview about anything that the skill that you don't have, it will be immediately caught in a face-to-face interview. Let's say from a telephonic, you are now called for a face-to-face interview in the office, which might start now very soon, like at least around August, September. The companies might start calling you for a face-to-face round of interview. So be very clear. So if you say something which is not right in doing a telephonic interview with the HR, it will be immediately caught during a personal round of interview. Yes, Dr. Sagar. Yes, Galvina.
I think somebody is just unmuted themselves. Guys, we can take questions in the end if you have. Till then, you can just keep your mics muted. Yeah.
Okay.
So continue, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So after the personal, let's say if the personal interview cannot happen with the current COVID-19 scenario, let's say if they arrange for a Teams or a WebEx or a Zoom interview, ensure that you are well prepared. You are well prepared in terms of you're well groomed, you are ready, you are sitting in a room which is very quiet and which has sufficient light, and we have sufficient bandwidth and sufficient network so that you can speak very clearly and communicate clearly on a Teams or a WebEx or a Zoom call. So that's very important, because right now there are very few face-to-face meetings happening. So it's very difficult to convince on a web-based or a WebEx or a Zoom call. So just keep that in mind, that if you are called for a WebEx interview, you will have to be really very prepared about everything that you know. And finally, post the interview, remember that all these people are already working. They're very, very busy, extremely busy in their day-to-day work. Do not forget to thank them. Just send a thank you note saying that thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. And it will be really great if you give me, it will be really great if I can hear from you about the status of my interview. And that is the follow-up line that you should add in that particular email. So that's very, very important. So when you're interviewing with anyone in a pharma industry, remember, before know everything about them, do your background check, talk about everything that's been asked. And during a WebEx interview, be very, very extremely ready, because you're going to sit at home and you'll have to very difficult time to convincing them. They will be on the other side, and it's difficult on a WebEx or a Zoom call to convince someone. It's easy to convince face to face, but it's really difficult on a Teams call. And post interview, do thank them. That's very extremely important. Thanking gives the impression that you are really interested in that interview, and the HR person might actually remember you in the future. So thanking and sending a follow-up email is extremely important. Please do that after your interview. Now let's quickly look at the body language that you need to do. So Reiki is something that for a movie, let's say for an Hindi movie or for an Hollywood movie, the directors will actually go to the location and they'll try and understand how the shot will be actually. They'll shoot the shot. So they will do a Reiki for that location. They'll make those sketches and they'll understand how it looks like. So for a job interview, if you really want to go for a pharma company who's in BKC, you stay in Borivali, or the interview is in Worli and you stay in Thane. So what I'll recommend is, prior to the interview, at least a week or 5 days or a day prior to that, prior to your interview, travel to the location, travel in a car or a bus or a train. Just try and get a hang of how exactly you're going to reach that location. So that will reduce your anxiety of travel, so that stress would not be there during that interview. Otherwise, remember, on the day of the interview you will be stressed about how to travel for that to that particular location. So if you're staying very far, at least around 40-50 kilometers, the trains are not there. There is going to be only Uber and Ola right now, and there's going to be your private vehicle, or there's going to be your BST or a taxi, or regular taxi. So remember that you'll have to go there at least a day prior and understand the location of the company. So doing a Reiki is really very important. That will reduce the amount of stress that you have on the day of the interview. Remember, you will have to be, let's say for boys, you'll have to be clean shaven. For girls, you will have to tie your hair and you'll have to be very extremely ready for the interview and be very presentable. Imagine, always be very presentable, because the first impression will always last for a long time. And the people who are working in the company, they might actually leave the company, they'll join another company and they might remember you. Okay, so be very presentable in an interview. So the face is very important. Clothes are extremely important. Buy new clothes for the interview. I mean, it's good to spend on clothes for an interview. Once you are there in your best attire, you will have the best confidence for that interview. So remember that clothes play a very important role. There's something called as power clothing. And if you have seen that, people who are doing presentations like giving TED Talks, they are wearing the best clothes. So, spend on clothes, that's absolutely fine. But, for an interview, you need to be well dressed. You need to be extremely, well groomed. Even your shoes or sandals or whatever you plan to wear should be nice and clean, because HR might actually look at your shoes, and if they are messy, they'll feel that, this person is not very careful about himself or herself. How would they manage doing something in the company? Let's say, for example, it's a job of in production, so you'll have to be very clean, very sterile. So you need to be very well groomed, during an interview. Eye contact is very important. You will have to be, have an eye contact with all the presenters. Let's say you're sitting in front of them and there are 3 presenters looking at you. Maintain an eye contact with them. Do not do, scratching your to try and think about something during the interview. You need to look at them and face each one of them for at least 5 seconds. At least maintain eye contact with each one of them. It shouldn't be like you're looking at just one person all the time. Maintain eye contact with all of them, all the presenters, so they also feel comfortable. So you will understand how exactly. So the problem with the digital is I'm not really able to explain and show you how exactly the whole thing looks like. But we can do another session definitely in our college, and I'll tell you how the whole thing works. How you need to sit during an interview, how you need to express, how you need to do some gestures. So that we can take up a different session for that. But this is very important. Maintain eye contact with your interviewers. Have a positive attitude. Never say no, or never say, never lie in an interview. You'll need to say, I don't know. Okay, I don't know. I mean, I'm hearing this for the first time, but I would love to do that. I would love to learn that. I would say that, this is something very new, and this is very something which I would love and eager to join. So show a very positive attitude. Never say no to something which the interviewer asks you, and always show a learning attitude. That would definitely help you during an interview. So with the body language, let's come to communication skills. What you need to do during an interview. You will have to read the JD, the job description. The job description is something which is posted on Naukri or LinkedIn or anything, or the HR person will share a job description with you. It will have the name of the role, the job title. It will have what the role responsibilities are. It will also have the educational qualification and the skills which are required for that particular job. Go through the job description in detail. Understand what the job description is telling you. Try and understand whether you fit the job description. There have been multiple instances when you feel that your job description is perfect, but once you start working, you feel that, oh, this job was not really great, and you're not feeling that challenged in that particular job. So go through the JD. The JD is very extremely important. Let the interviewer ask questions. Let's say you are sitting here and there are 3 interviewers who are interviewing you, and when they ask you something, only answer what is being asked. Do not give extra information. it's almost like a lawyer or a police interrogator. Remember, they are almost playing that role. The more they keep quiet or the more they are silent, remember that they are allowing you to speak, but that doesn't mean you speak about everything. Just answer what they're answering, what they're asking. Just be very, very extremely specific. Do not, tell them about everything. They don't really care, but they're trying to judge, what you know and how you behave. So if they're asking you, where do you want to be 5 years down the lane, say that, you want to grow in this role and you want to become a manager, senior manager, director, whatever you want to be. But just specify that, be very precise to what they've asked. So that will, that way you won't have to keep on answering multiple questions. It will be very specific and very particular to the JD. Maintain eye contact when you speak. Don't look at your feet. Don't look at the door. Don't look at the windows. Do not look at somewhere else when they're asking questions. Focus on what they're asking. Think about it. If you need some time, you can just ask them, can you please repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't get you. If you can please repeat, or something like that. So when you want to speak to them with the interviewers, try and maintain an eye contact. Okay, when you lose eye contact, they feel that you are not interested. When you try and look at the floor or look at your shoes, they will feel that you're guessing the answer. So do not look down. Okay, looking down is not thought well at all. So just be very, very confident, be smiling, look at them, face them, have eye contact with them, and keep a smiling face. So that's very, very extremely important. Smile actually will help you to navigate the interview very easily. Be smiling, be very happy. That will definitely help you. If you feel the pressure, they will immediately get that. So, they are the ones who are already been there in the interview. They are the ones who have been taking interviews for multiple candidates. So keep smiling face, and that will take you, you'll be able to crack that interview for sure. And smile is, the answer for all your questions. So with the communication skills, the final one is email etiquette. We can definitely have more sessions, and we can go in detail of each and every slide that I have. Because right now, with the constraint of time, and we have very limited time, we will have a very, a short description of each activity, but we can go in detail. If you're really interested, you can definitely let Galvina, Dr. Sagar, or, Premlata ma'am know about it, and we can have detailed sessions. So email etiquette would be, once you're done with the interview, please send an email, very nice email with a good subject line. The subject line is the one which will be highlighted in the inbox. Always remember that your subject line should be very eye-catching. That is the one which will make the receiver open your email. The HR person or the hiring manager is the one who has very limited time. And if you write a very not a precise subject line, then nobody is going to open that email. It will directly be deleted, or it will be sent to the recycle bin. Ensure that your subject line is very catchy, and it's very important that it's catchy in the sense we're not extremely creative, but saying thank you for the interview on this particular day, thank you for the application for this particular role, thank you for the interview, and thank you for your time, or something like that. But the subject line should be very clear. Addressee, just be very careful about whom you're addressing the email to. The to and the CC and the BCC have a role to play, in the corporate world. To is the one who is going to action upon your email. CC is the one who just has to be informed about what is happening. BCC is the one who doesn't have to be shown that you are copying that particular person. Avoid using BCC. You can have CC as the hiring manager. You can send that email to the HR person. That will be in the to, in the addressee box. Content is very important. What you write, dear sir, dear madam, or dear whoever the person is. Let's say you are sending an email to me, I am your hiring manager. You'll say, dear Nina, thank you so much for your time today. It was indeed a pleasure meeting you and speaking you regarding this particular position. I'm very much interested in the position and would love to hear from you very soon. That would be the content. Always remember, your mind works only when you're writing your content. Your mind will focus only on the content of that email. Mind will not focus on the grammar. So once you have written your email, recheck it, review it, read it twice. Do not send email instantly. Always remember, keep this in mind. If you're good at email etiquette, trust me, one of you who's attending this call would be definitely going to be a CEO in the future. So if you're very good at writing emails, you will definitely climb the ladder really fast. So ensure that once you have written your content in any email, let's say informal email in Gmail, or you're writing a formal email in Outlook, ensure that you read it, proofread it, read it second time, read it thrice. ensure that you click on review the grammar and the summary. So click on that and check whether there is any issues with your grammar. So the content is very important, and be very thorough with your content. And at the end of the line, you should mention an action required. As an action required, as in I mentioned earlier, you need to mention that, okay, looking forward to hear from you soon. That is an action which you want them to take. The action is that they should give you a feedback. So that's the action required. And thank the receiver and thank the receiver in your email. So that's the most important points which you need to keep in mind when you're applying for a job, when you're sending your cover letter, when you're sending your CV, when you're done with your interview, and you're following up with the HR person or with your hiring manager for that particular position, for the position. So remember that the email which you send should be perfect. If you're sending a WhatsApp or a SMS, always be very formal in it. Do not be casual, because you don't know that person, you don't know that HR person, you don't know the line manager. So be very formal when they're approaching for the first time to for an HR person or a line manager. Do not be very casual. Send formal email or a formal SMS or a formal WhatsApp. Once you know that person, you can send multiple casual WhatsApp messages. But in the beginning, please be very, very formal, because that person also doesn't know you. All right, so with that email etiquette, we come to the last part of the presentation. It will take 5 more minutes, and then we'll go to Q&A. So the inner engineering part is something I thought you all should remember. Now that we have seen the global pharma industry, we have seen the Indian pharma industry, we looked at how to write a CV, we looked at how to do our job search, we also looked at how to communicate, what should be our body language, what should be our communication skills, how should be our communication skills, what are the email etiquettes that we need to follow. Now let's look at, for all this to happen, what is required. The inner engineering part is mainly, the word itself comes from Sadhguru. So he's the one of spiritual guru whom I've been following for the last 6 years, and he's been brilliant, very rational. I'm not saying he's very religious or it's very spiritual, or he talks very rationally. So that's what I like about him. He's very practical. So from that, what I feel is you need to be very specialist. So for example, Michael Phelps, whenever you say a name, the thought should be about a specialist. Like Michael Phelps has the maximum number of gold in swimming. If you say Sachin Tendulkar, if you say Lata Mangeshkar, anybody, they're all specialists. So remember that nobody was a generalist. They kept on playing the same thing again and again. So if you want to become a specialist, if you want to grow in your career really fast, you need to be a specialist. If you want to get into R&D, sales, marketing, market research, regulatory, pharmacovigilance, anything, that is absolutely fine. Whichever field, whichever department you want to get into, be in that field. It's absolutely fine. If you don't love that job, please definitely search for a new job. But be a specialist. Be thorough with what you know about. And once you become a specialist, it will be easier for you, to navigate the career ladder. Generalists will keep on, changing fields, changing from pharma to something else, to something else, to something else. So don't do that. If you want to get into something, be a specialist. That's really, very important, because being a specialist has a very high recall value. Somebody needs to recall your name quickly. If somebody says who's the best marketer, who's the best product manager in India, they should say this person, is the best marketer. Who's the best pharmacovigilance person? This guy is the best guy. Who's the best R&D formulation scientist in India? This guy is the best guy. So be a specialist. Okay, so that would definitely help. So now a question will come to your mind that okay, this is fine, but how do you become a specialist? So for becoming a specialist, you need a coach. Okay. A coach would be somebody who has done what you want to do. If you want to get into pharmacovigilance or regulatory or safety, sales, marketing, or market research, or anything else, you want to do a business, a pharma business, somebody who has already done that, you can speak to that person. He'll be your coach. I won't go through all the points, but just remember briefly that coach is someone who will give you solutions. A mentor would be someone who will give you options. Okay. So if you want to get into a pharma role, speak to someone who has already done that role. He'll be the one who can give you solutions. He'll be your coach. But if you want to grow in your career, get a mentor. Mentor would be anybody who's not from pharma, who's from like finance background, who's from IT background, who's from something else. Because these guys are the ones who will be... Coach will be non-judgmental, because he won't know about how exactly you're behaving. He'll only tell you that this is right, this is wrong, only for that particular field, But a mentor will be very judgmental, and I want that mentor to be judgmental, because they are the ones who can see a good or a bad thing in you, and they will be the ones who can guide you, who can give you multiple options. So always have a coach, always have a pharma person who has done that. If you want to get into academics, speak to Dr. Galvina, speak to Dr. Sagar, speak to Dr. Premlata if you want to be a professor. But if you want to get into corporate world in a particular field, speak to that person. That will be he or she would be your coach, and get a mentor. Mentor would be anybody, your relative who's into a different field or a different sector. That person will definitely guide you, will give you different options. Always have a mentor with you for sure. That will definitely help you. For that, you will need three things which are very important right now. The three aces. Always remember the three aces. जो तीन एक जो important है आपके career के लिए, जो are which will help you, throughout your career, are acceptance. You need to accept that these are my weaknesses, these are my strengths. Do not compare yourself that यार उसको ये आ रहा है मुझे क्यों नहीं आ रहा. Acceptance of what you know and how much do you know. Accept that and move on. Okay. Do not think about ये मुझे नहीं आ रहा. Do not feel bad about it. Don't feel depressed at all. There is a lot of opportunity right now in the pharma market, and it's going to increase. So don't worry. Accept what your strengths are and move on. So acceptance is very important. Affirmation is very important. Nobody is going to tell you that what you're doing is right or what you're doing is wrong. So affirmation is very important. Tell it to yourself that what I'm doing is right. What I'm going to do is also right. You need to push yourself. Nobody is going to push you. Your parents are not going to push you. Your best friends are not going to push you. Your professors are not going to push you. You are the ones who need to push yourself. So affirmation, and the affirmation should come from inside, saying that, okay, I am going to do this. I am going to do that. And I am going to achieve this. So acceptance that I have this strength, I have this weakness. Work on your strengths, also work on your weaknesses, so that you improve on your, improve on that side as well. Affirmation is very important. You need to push yourself. The final one is aspiration. The final ikka of your career is aspiration. If you don't aspire to grow, if you love being in the comfort zone, you will not grow in your career. Remember this. Aspire. Create a career graph where you want to be after 2 years, where you want to be after 5 years, where you want to be after 10 years. Imagine that once you graduate, you are like 20, 21, 23 years old, or if you're a PhD around 25, 26-year-old, you will have at least around 40 to 35 years of your career, to spend in a corporate world. Or if you want to spend in the academics, you still have 35 to 40 years with you. The amount of money amount of time you spend in that particular time, 35 to 40 years, is the time you will get that experience and the money. That is what you're going to earn. So the earlier you start, the better. The earlier you start saving with the money that you earn is better. So start saving, start earning as early as possible, start saving as early as possible. That will help you definitely in the long term. Once you retire from your job, or once you retire from academics, it will definitely help you. So have acceptance, have affirmation, have an aspiration, and the most important part is action. Okay, do not procrastinate with whatever you're thinking right now. Whether I should take it, not take it, take an action. Think about it. I ask someone. If you're not sure, ask someone. As in, take their help. It's absolutely fine about asking. About something that you don't know. That's absolutely fine. That's not a weakness at all. If you don't know something, go ask it. Go ask about it to somebody who's already done it. If you're looking for a job, tell the whole world that you're looking for a job. There's no problem in asking about it. You are the one who needs the job. You are the one who wants the job. It's absolutely fine asking about it. There's no shame in that. Be very shameless about what you want. Just go ahead and ask everyone about it. And it's absolutely fine, because you are the ones who are finally going to benefit from it. So go completely, about it, and just ask everyone about whether you want to go about this particular job or not. Asking help is absolutely fine. And finally, the most important part which I mentioned is, which I forgot, is leave a legacy in every job that you do. Okay, it's not about how much money you earned, how much experience you got from that particular job. Remember, once you leave that job, a person should not be saying that, "अरे उसने इतना अच्छा काम नहीं किया था, ये हमेशा ऐसी बातें करता था, हमेशा वैसी बातें करता था." So remember that once you leave that company, leave that job, or leave that particular location or a place or a city or a country, remember that person. They should remember you for something good that you have done for the company, good that you have done for them, or good that you have done for your particular role. So remember that leaving a legacy is more important than earning. Money will always come. Don't worry. Whenever you follow your passion, you follow what you really want to do, money will always come. But ensure that you leave a good legacy. People should not feel, they are relieved that you have left the company. People should actually miss you. They should feel that, "अरे ये चला गया, ये बहुत अच्छा इंसान था." So leave a legacy that would definitely help you, getting better jobs. Once you like help other people, they will definitely recommend you for other jobs or other companies or in other pharmaceutical, the companies which are there in the country. So EDSO, this is what I feel that everybody should. This is the one which I narrowed down for good hormones and bad hormones. This is just like an acronym for that. Endorphins are the ones which are released when you exercise. So I would recommend that you should exercise daily. That's when your endorphins are released. This is what you must have learned during your pharmacology classes. Dopamine. Remember, dopamine is released when you achieve your goal. When you buy something, when you buy online on Amazon or Flipkart or any other online e-commerce website, when you buy something, your dopamine gets released. So remember, these are the four good hormones. When you help others, serotonin is released. That's very important for your sleep. So when you help others, the serotonin will be released and it will help you for a good night's sleep. Oxytocin is with social bonding, when you interact with your friends, your relatives, or with your classmates, or with your school friends. Oxytocin is released in your brain. So these are the very four good hormones that we should practice daily. Remember, cortisol is the hormone which will cause stress and which will not help you to sleep. That's a very bad hormone, so please stay away from that. Adrenaline is a runner's high, which is still fine, because when you keep on running, there is adrenaline which is released in your brain that will give you a high, which will, that's the reason why people love to run. If you've seen Milind Somani, he keeps on running because that's the runner's high which he gets. So the bottom line from this slide is ensure that you practice exercise, you achieve your goals, you buy whatever you want, don't go for it. You keep on helping others so that serotonin is released. And you should have social bonding. I understand right now we cannot go out and meet everyone, but keep on calling them, keep on do a FaceTime. You can call them on WhatsApp. You can also do other Zoom calls. So keep on doing social bonding as well. That's very important. And finally, ADME. We all know from pharmacy that ADME stands for absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. But a short ADME from Bhagavad Gita that what I've learned is, see, the A stands for approach. If you have the right approach, and if you really want to go for it, you will definitely get it. So there is an ADME stands for A for approach. D is the doer. You are the doer. M is the means. Means is the education that you're receiving, the information that you're receiving from this webinar. Efforts, you will have to put your efforts. So if you're looking for a job, you will need to put forward those efforts. You will have to go all out and ask everyone about the job that you want. Once you have ADME in place, there will be a divine push which will happen for sure. 100%, I can assure you that. But you need to put all these ADME in place. You need to have an approach. Approach in the sense you need to be sure about what you want to do. Doer is you are the ones who are going to do it because you have the knowledge, you have the attitude, you have the skills, you have the means, you have the education that you have gained from your BPharm, MPharm, and PhD, and the efforts that you put in searching for a job or getting that particular or getting the dream job that you want. So the efforts are from your side. So once you have that, trust me, there will be a divine hand, as in somebody hand will always be there. And finally, what I recommend everyone to read is, these are the two books which I would recommend all the pharmacy students to please read. It's Rich Dad and Poor Dad. This is one of the very good books about how to manage your income, and The Magic of Thinking Big. This is another excellent book which will help you to actually ensure that it will help you to grow personally, professionally, as well as socially. So I've read both these books, and let's see if I have the best question, I can definitely give these two books for free for the person who asked the best question from today's session. But I would definitely recommend that please do read these two books for sure, because they are the ones who will make you, these two books will make you financially literate. And that's very, very, very important. So please do read these two books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and The Magic of Thinking Big. So with that, the final key takeaways, this is the final slide. Sorry, I took some extra time from Dr. Galvina and Dr. Sagar's schedule. Let's quickly wrap it up. Key takeaways from today's talk: understand the pharma industry, understand what I told you some time back. You can call me up anytime on the weekend. We can definitely speak about it. Do your own SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Strengths would be you have the best presentation skills. Weakness would be you're not good at financials, or you're not good at mathematics or calculations or percentages, margins or something like that. Opportunities would be, you know that your strengths are communication, you can still go in sales, so you can learn about your weakness about the financial part. Threats would be somebody from you also doing, a BSc, MBS, they would be your competition. So that's your threat. but don't look at the threats at all. Always work on your strengths, and once you are very good about your strengths, you will definitely land up the job. Understand the job requirement. That's very, 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 very crucial. If you don't understand what the job requires from you, you will be bored within the next 6 months, or will you be bored in the next 2 or 3 months. Understand what the job requires from you. Otherwise, it's not a good idea to take up a job and then leave it in the next 2-3 months. So understand what the job requires from you. Be confident about who you are. Be whatever strength that you have. Be very confident about it and speak about it in open forums. Speak about it during the interview. And finally, keep on helping others. That's the time when you actually get the solutions for your own problems. And this I've learned with experience for the last 17 years, while studying and while working in the pharma sector, that when you help others to solve their problems, that's when you actually get the solutions for your own problems. So that's very, very important. So keep on doing that. Keep on helping people. You will get the solutions for all your problems and all your questions. So I think with that, Dr. Galvina and Dr. Sagar, I would stop here, and thank you all. Thank you all for listening. I hope that everybody is still in the call, and I hope that there was, I was able to guide you. I was able to provide you some information with which you were able to, there were some changes which happened from today's talk for sure. I will now stop here for.
Thank you, Mr. Ninad. Am I audible?
Yes, Galvina, please go ahead.
Yeah. So can we take the questions now, sir?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so first question we had it long back from Shivam. It was, I'll just read it out. He says, I have a question. There was this case in Teginero phase 1 study where there was a drug which binds to T-cell receptor in our body. When it was administered, 6 patients, both placebo dose as well as active, all 6 suffered serious organ dysfunction. So how do pharma companies overcome this situation? I think it is basis the mortalities that happens during the clinical trials. So how is that countered by pharma companies? That is precisely what you want to ask, Shiva?
Yeah, maybe Shivan, yes, you can just unmute yourself.
Hello?
Don't worry.
Yes, ma'am, exactly.
Hello? Yeah. So mortalities in clinical trials. So how do pharma companies take this case?
Okay. So Shivam, thank you for that question. So to answer that question, see, remember, pharma is a business. Okay, everybody is here for profits, and everybody wants a molecule which is safe and efficacious. Nobody wants adverse events. Nobody wants SAEs. Nobody wants people or patients to die. And especially during clinical trials, the clinical trials are the ones which are monitored very thoroughly, because there is ICGCP in place. There are multiple country regulations which are also there in place. So a clinical trial will be done in a very strict and controlled setting. It's very unfortunate that there were patients and subjects who died during that particular trial. But I would say that a company, any pharma company will take utmost care to do the clinical trial in a very neutral setting without being biased. And the pharma company will definitely be very, very neutral, very independent. They'll do it very independently, without the sales, marketing, or a commercial interfering with it. And that is the time when utmost care is taken for patient safety, utmost care is taken for patient confidentiality, and utmost care is taken about the data integrity part. As in, there are a lot of cases which have been reported in the past in Lancet and in NEJM about fraudulent data which was submitted and published. But these are very few cases which are the bad apples in the pharma companies. But don't worry at all. So there are very strict guidelines and very strict protocols followed by pharma companies like ICGCP, and there are guidelines for local country regulations as well. So in doing a clinical trial for any pharma company, they will definitely ensure that all the safety protocols, all the safety norms, all the safety guidelines are followed. Everything is reported to the local health authorities, and in case it's a safety warning or there is a signal detection which is done, the product label will be updated. You've seen the product, right? The labels on the product, there is a package insert that will be immediately updated if there are a lot of people who are dying during the clinical trial, and if the product is already marketed. If the product is not yet marketed, the care would be taken during phase 2 and phase 3 trials, that the dose would be changed, or some modifications would be done. I hope that answers your question.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that answered Shivam's question. So the next
Okay, great.
question that we have is from Neha Prasad.
Okay.
What courses would be required to get a job in market research?
Oh, excellent question. So I think for market research, what I've seen is mostly the ones who are get into market research are doing MBA with marketing, because once you do an MBA with marketing, you understand how exactly a product would be launched, as in the whole product life cycle. Okay, so for doing market research, so I'll give you an example what happens in a market research. A market research company will they will have a panel of doctors, or they will have a panel of retailers from where they'll collect the data about how many prescriptions of products which are coming from the market for a particular brand or a particular molecule or a particular therapy or a particular category. And the market research companies, they will provide this data in an Excel sheet to the marketeers, to the marketing people in a pharma company. The marketing people will look at this data from Excel sheet and they will develop their brand plan or a plan for the particular product or a brand, and that is how they launch a product, or that is how they change the packaging, or that is how they change the pricing. So to answer your question, MBA is the only course which is, I feel right now, is there for getting into market research. And I haven't seen any certificate courses or any diploma courses or anything else. But ideally, what I've seen is generally people do an MBA in marketing, an MBA or an MBA in finance to understand the financial or the commercial aspect of products, and then they land up in a job in market research. But yes, market research is a very lucrative field. If you really want to get into that, please contact Karan. I think there is Karan Shroff who's working in IMS. He's there on LinkedIn and he's a BCP alumni. So you can contact him. He's there in IMS and he's doing market research.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other
Hello.
question?
Yeah, sir, the next question is, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I think KI sir is there. Yeah, sir.
Just wanted to add something to what Ninad said. Nowadays, you can also try and do some courses in data analytics.
Yes, I was
and
going
that
to-
sometimes helps in market research related jobs. Okay, so that's another avenue people are looking at as part of market research, which is knowledge in the area of data analytics.
Yes,
So
yes. Thank you so much, sir. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Again, the next question is from Shivani Tiwari, first year student. Her question is very interesting actually. What online courses or platforms like Coursera, LinkedIn, Discover, etc. would help us in future, regardless of what exactly we should choose to do being in the first year? We do not have real idea of what we may pursue later.
Okay.
So
okay.
what would be helpful at that at this particular point of time?
Understood. So I think to answer that question, I think the best thing for all the students right now would be to speak to your professors first, understand what are the different options which are available. Once you have narrowed down at least around 2 to 3 options which you want to, the options or the options which you are shortlisted, you can definitely then speak to the people who are already there working in those domains. And once you get an idea about what exactly the job profile is in that particular domain, let's say if you shortlist for sales, marketing, R&D, and QA or a regulatory affairs job, then you can speak to the people who are already working in these particular domains, get an idea of what exactly the job looks like, how a normal 9 to 5 day looks like for them, and just try and understand whether you will be happy doing that kind of work on a day-to-day basis, or on a 6 months or a year basis or a 2 years basis. And once you're sure about that, you can start applying for that particular job. But I would recommend step 1 would be speak to your professors. Step 2 would be shortlist the 3 domains that you really want to focus. Speak to people who are working in these domains. Get an idea. After speaking to them, then narrow down. Speak to your parents. Speak to your friends, and then finally decide how you plan to approach these, companies or the job profiles or positions which are there in these domains. Does that answer?
Yes,
the
yes,
question,
sir.
Dr. Sagar?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Shivani has just confirmed, I think.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So I will go to the next question, which is from Deepa, PhD student. So which are the departments in pharma industry you feel will have the highest employability post-COVID?
Okay. So
It's a very
post-COVID,
tricky
the
question.
highest. No, yeah, I agree. But it's very clear. See, post-COVID, everything is digital. Right now, we are talking on a digital platform, right? So I think the post-COVID, everything is going to be digital. Hopefully, the change will happen for sure. The transition would be gradual. It won't happen immediately. But yes, see, pharma companies are right now looking at digital platforms for doctors, digital platforms for engaging these doctors, digital platforms for how the data can be generated from retailers, from stockists, so everything is going digital. So anything which is digital. So if you're done with your PhD, if you, as KSR rightly said, if you if you do a course in data analytics, and if you do something which is very much into a digital domain which the pharma company is looking forward to develop, always remember the pharma company will always put a lot of money getting the analytics part done really perfectly, because that is where they get down to what the specifics are, and that is where they'll put the money. So getting something which is related to digital marketing, digital analytics, or anything which is digital will definitely help you, especially let's say if you've done PhD, and if you're getting into statistics, and if you're getting into something which is medical writing related, which is purely into digital platforms, it will definitely help you. So I think digital will still sustain the jobs which were very, very manual, which now could be done digitally. They will suddenly become redundant. So you'll have to adapt to what is changing right now. So I think digital is the future, and if you get into something which is really very digital, that will be the best thing. Does that answer that question?
Can I have a different viewpoint, Ninad sir?
Sure, sir. Sure. Arey, sir,
Yeah.
don't call me sir.
So the way I'm going to answer is to answer as the way the question was asked. Deepa asked what would be the situation post-COVID. Okay. Now, what I feel is a lot of time when this question is asked, we actually answer what would be the situation during COVID. Okay. So if I'm going to think of what is going to happen post-COVID, which means when we have already attained herd immunity, when that infection is going to be part of our life, just like influenza is, just like common cold is, then things are going to go back to how they were before. Because people will start traveling, people will go everywhere, and everything will go back to how it was. The issue is what is going to happen in the time before that happens, which actually should be the question should be, what will be the change in the profile during these times before we enter the post-COVID era? And in that case, whatever you said is true. Okay, that we are going to be more digital. We are going to have probably new disciplines. If that is the question Deepa is asked, then your answer is right. But if she is asking what is going to happen really after COVID, then I feel after COVID it will be back to how it was. Okay.
Sure,
It is now. Okay, so post-COVID means everything is back. We are, you got drugs for COVID. We are able to handle the infection just like any other infection. And then things will settle down to the way things were 3 months ago. We'll all be traveling. R&D will start. All the people will come to work. There'll be nothing called work from home unless some companies have just changed their philosophy and said, from now on, we'll be doing work from home because it's economically more feasible. Okay, so if those things do occur, then there'll be I surely agree, there'll be an increase in the digital component or in the virtual component. But I don't feel that we are going to be stuck in this loop, because at some point, as we develop drugs and vaccines and we attain herd immunity, life will return back to how it was about 6 months ago. And then all the previous ways things work will again seep in. We are creatures of habit. We go back to what we were doing for many years.
True.
That's my. Hello.
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. Okay, next question is from Swarnadeep. Which company offers job in medical affairs?
Okay, so most of the pharma companies will offer a job in medical affairs, but mainly it will be after you've done a PhD. For a B.Pharm or an M.Pharm level, there is very difficult to get into medical affairs. You can get into medical information, or you can get into quality kind of roles. But properly, if you want to become a medical advisor, PhD is recommended. And I think most of the companies will definitely consider a PhD, but not a B.Pharm or an M.Pharm graduate.
Okay, I think that answers Swarnadeep's question. So some of the questions students are posting right now in the chat box. So what I'll do, sir, is I will ask them to unmute themselves and let them only ask the question. Okay.
Yes, absolutely fine.
Kashmira, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
Are there any opportunities in drug research?
In R&D, yes. In R&D, there are opportunities in India. There are opportunities in Mumbai. There are opportunities in Hyderabad, in Bangalore. And there are very good companies like Biocon. There is Dr. Reddy's in Hyderabad, Cipla in Mumbai. There are multiple smaller companies in Mumbai as well. However, I would recommend that if you really want to get into research, I would definitely request you to go for your master's and PhD, or something which is there in US or UK, Canada, or Australia. Because the research environments are very, 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 I mean, the research is very much supported in these countries. In India, it's very limited since we are a generic market. Innovation and spending on R&D, the R&D budgets are very limited. So, the R&D part and the R&D jobs are there, but very few in India. For sure, but the numbers are very limited.
Okay.